Hey guys, Britt here. Welcome to End Times Bible Prophecy. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons. Well, today we're going to talk about birth pains and rumors of war. And in fact, we're going to look at some specific events that are taking place right now that I believe may very well lead to war. So the very definition of a rumor of war. And so why is that significant? Why should it matter? Well, the answer is because the Bible tells us so, and that's the source we should be looking at. So let's take a look right here at Matthew 24, verses 3 through 8. It says, "Later Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives. His disciples came to him privately and said, 'Tell us, when will all this happen? What sign will signal your return and the end of the world?' Jesus told them, 'Don't let anyone mislead you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Messiah. They will deceive many, and you will hear of wars and threats of wars, but don't panic. Yes, these things must take place, but the end won't follow immediately. Nation will go to war against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes in many parts of the world, but all this is only the first of the birth pains, with more to come.'" So guys, this was in direct reference to the disciples coming to Jesus and saying, what's the sign of the end and you're coming to establish your kingdom? So what they're referencing here is not the rapture of the church. That's a signless event that could happen at any moment, but they're talking about the second coming, the glorious appearing of Christ at the end of the 7-year tribulation period to establish the millennial kingdom. And so Jesus provides specific signs to look for. There are others in this passage, as well as Mark 13, Luke 21. I also include in those signs what the Old Testament prophets said about this time period in question. So Jesus is saying we should look for those signs, but not just those signs in general, but in a specific way, meaning they will be like birth pains. So what are birth pains like? Well, birth pains increase in frequency and intensity as we get closer to the point of birth of the child. So what Jesus is saying is that we would see these signs increase in frequency and intensity as we get closer to the main event, which in this case is the second coming of Jesus Christ. So we should expect to see wars, rumors of wars, famines, earthquakes increasing in frequency and intensity leading up to the second coming. But we should expect to see these big global events, and I believe we've seen many of those. We've seen many of the signs that he talked about. We see Israel back in the land. We see the Jewish people in control of Jerusalem once again. These are specific signs that Jesus taught about. The gospel being preached all over the world. We can say, well, that's not completely fulfilled yet, but we're on the verge of it in a way that previous generations couldn't say that we were. We see this mark of the beast system being set up. We could go into countless signs that we're seeing that are occurring with greater frequency and intensity in this birth pain-like manner. And I believe we've seen some of those global events that aren't necessarily specifically outlined in the Bible, but such as the pandemic or the war in Ukraine, which has global implications. In the time of Jesus, if you had two neighboring nations go to war like that, it profoundly affected that region. But it had, if Russia and Ukraine and the people that lived in those geographical areas 2,000 years ago went to war, it would have no impact whatsoever on people in Australia and China and South America and Africa, North America, none whatsoever. But today, with the global supply chain, it has an absolute impact on agricultural production, the availability of energy sources, the availability of key inputs like specialized industrial gases that are only made in a specific part of the world. And when that global supply chain is disrupted, it impacts the entire world. So I believe we're seeing these major global events, and we're going to see more of them. And I haven't hidden that I believe that one of those major global events we're about to see is a global depression on par with the Great Depression. And I want to take a look at this article right here that points us to just such a scenario. This is from Business Insider. It says China is hiding key data to pretend its economy is doing okay. It's not. It says, well, let's roll down here. I'll skip past some of the subtitles, but it says China's latest strategy for boosting its struggling economy is to hide the unflattering data and pretend everything is okay. The National Bureau of Statistics said Tuesday it would stop releasing youth unemployment numbers after joblessness among 16 to 24-year-olds spiked to 21% in June. So they're not even revealing that number anymore. They've hidden it. And of course, the United States does this. Just about every country in the world does this when the data is data they don't want the public to know about or that looks bad on the politicians. They just simply either revise it into something unrecognizable, or they just brush it under the rug and stop publishing that data and say, there's no reason we stopped doing that. We just decided right now. But we all know they don't want us to see that data. Anyway, it says it cited the need for further optimization of its metrics, but it's more likely that Beijing decided not to report the latest data in a bid to shut down the idea that the world's second largest economy is struggling. Earlier this year, former Treasury official Brad Setzer questioned whether China was accurately disclosing its foreign currency holdings. And last week, the Financial Times reported that officials had told prominent economists not to discuss issues such as deflation or stuttering growth. And guys, when the government puts forward these mandates, just like we saw with censorship over the last few years, it means they don't want the truth to get out, right? So they're telling us here that deflation and sputtering growth is an issue that they don't want people to know about. And what have we been saying? But a deflationary spiral is coming, this deflationary Great Depression. That's what the Great Depression was a deflationary spiral. It says, however, China's efforts to persuade the world that its economy is in good health are likely to fall flat. That's because the numbers it is still publishing, so the ones it's still putting out, make for grim reading, with second quarter growth falling well short of forecasters' expectations. Exports plunging to their lowest level in 3 years. What happened 3 years ago? Well, we know the global economy had this huge downturn. So this is the worst exports since basically they shut down their economy 3 years ago. And plunging shop and factory prices leading to deflation. So guys, in other articles you can read about, they've had retail sales go negative year over year for the first time and on record pretty much in China. So we're seeing some bad statistics, and those are the ones that they're allowing to come out. We're seeing these statistics come out. And of course, there's problems with some large institutions in China we're going to talk about in just a moment. But if you remember, back in the fall of last year, we talked about, it was almost a year ago, probably about a year ago, we talked about that there would be a Lehman moment coming, meaning just as Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, and that sort of set the markets into this panic mode and caused this contagion and this chain reaction in the global economy that led to the great financial crisis as we know it. We were soon going to see something similar to that. And at the time, I thought it's coming much sooner, and it's probably coming in Europe, the United States, or Japan. We did see some problems in the UK. We saw that UK gilt crisis, but the government was able to paper over that. We've seen, of course, the second, third, and fourth largest bank failures in U.S. history earlier this year, but the government's managed to kick that can down the road, at least for a little while. But could this Lehman moment occur in China? Could China be the catalyst that causes the global financial contagion? So that's exactly what this article says from Big News Network. It says China faces Lehman moment fears as big investment firm misses payments. It says the Wall Street Journal on Saturday reported that investors fearing a Lehman moment in China are threatening the solvency of the country's financial system. The American Business and Economic Focus Daily said that signs of financial stress at a large asset manager in China are making investors nervous about contagion from the country's slumping property sector, rekindling a debate over whether a Lehman moment could occur in the world's second largest economy. And again, if you count the European Union member states as one nation, the EU, you could debate whether it's the second or third largest economy when you're talking about China. But the point is, the impact is large. If China goes into a deflationary period, that will have an impact on the entire global economy, no doubt about it. It says, according to CNN Business, at least 3 Chinese companies had in separate stock exchange filings in recent weeks stated that the Chinese firm Zhongrong Trust had failed to pay the interest and principal on several investment products, with the missing scale of payments exceeding $15 million. Now, guys, this is a wealth management firm that sells investment products to the public in China. As of the end of 2022, they had $87 billion of client funds that they were managing reportedly. Yet, they failed to make a $15 million payment. What does that tell you about signs of trouble with this investment firm? Or is it even an investment firm? Is it a Ponzi scheme? Well, we'll find out in due time, but let's read on and see what else it has to say. It says, the August 18th Wall Street Journal report highlights that these factors have raised concerns among investors that a similar systemic crisis might be looming. Investors and financial experts are closely monitoring the situation as China's financial stability plays a vital role in the global economy. According to analysts, the potential implications of a Lehman moment in China could be far-reaching, affecting international trade, investments, and economic growth. CNN Business Report said that Zhongrong had on Monday issued a statement saying, quote, criminals had sent false notices to customers about the cancellation of investment products. It warned investors to be vigilant of fraud, but has not commented on the issue of missed payments to investors. So guys, what do you think? Is this criminals that release this fraudulent information? Or are we going to find out that the criminals are the ones running this firm and they've been running a Ponzi scheme? Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. But I know that foreign investors are very unlikely to buy this idea. And we're seeing a lot of firms from around the world, a lot of multinational corporations start to pull back from their investment in China, sell off some of their holdings. There are a number of reasons for that we'll get to in a moment. But if you're one of these Chinese citizens investing in these products, well, what are you going to do? You can call out the criminals all you want, but what are they going to do? Are we going to find out that this is a Ponzi scheme? Because again, Warren Buffett has a saying, when the tide goes out, then you find out who's been swimming naked. And we saw back in 2008, 2009, when Bernie Madoff had the world's largest Ponzi scheme up to that point fall apart. For the years before that, people thought, well, he's this wonderful investor, this wonderful money manager. Look at these returns he gets for his clients. Some who had suspicions thought, well, he's insider trading. But then it turns out he was simply just running a Ponzi scheme. And once the markets went down, once the financial system started to crash, that exposed his Ponzi scheme. It fell apart, bankrupted countless people. They lost everything. Are we about to see the same thing happen in China on really a much larger scale as we see their property sector. The largest property developer in China is also reported to miss payments as of a couple of weeks ago. We have Evergrande, the second largest property developer in China, has gone into bankruptcy proceedings. And we know that around 30% of the Chinese economy is based on this real estate sector that's experiencing trouble. And now we see this wealth management firm is also having problems. So is China heading into this deflationary spiral? Can the government paper over this? Can they come to the rescue? Can they bail this out and kick the can down the road? Well, there will be a lot of questions about that because here they're lying to themselves. They're hiding these statistics, obviously, to keep them away from the citizens so that the citizens aren't aware of what's going on, or at least they think. But in doing that, how many of the government officials who are also citizens themselves, how aware are they of these problems? Are they aware of the depth of these problems to be able to even attempt to solve these issues before they get out of control and we see a financial contagion sweep across the globe? So again, let's go back. What does this have to do with war or rumors of war? Well, again, we look at this youth unemployment figure that they're hiding that was at 21%. We would assume it's much higher if they're no longer reporting that. Well, you can lie to foreign investors all you want, but if you're one of those youth unemployed, well, you know that you're unemployed, right? They can try to gaslight you and say, no, you're gainfully employed. You're well paid. But if you're not, you know you're not. And there's another old adage that says, beware not of the angry man, beware of the hungry man. And so if you're hungry and they're telling you you're well fed, or you're homeless and they're telling you you have a nice home, you know what reality is. And typically when you have youth unemployment at a large scale, you end up with social unrest. Will China be able to contain that? What will they do if they are facing a problem, an issue like that of widespread social unrest because of the economic conditions? Well, Gerald Celente likes to say, when all else fails, they take you to war. And we've certainly seen that throughout history when politicians are faced with a population turning inward and examining the policies of their government. It's a lot easier to take their attention away from those policies by turning to a common external enemy. And so could this lead to war? Could this lead to a Chinese invasion of Taiwan? Could this lead to war with the United States? I don't know. I don't know where this is going to go. But we do know this. If you remember this from around 2 years ago, there was this article in the news: China hoards over half the world's grain, pushing up global prices. It says less than 20% of the world's population managed to stockpile more than half of the globe's maize and other grains. And at the time that came out, we talked about, well, did China know that Russia was going to invade Ukraine and what that may lead to? And they wanted to be prepared and have stockpiles ready to feed their population. Do they know that war is about to take place, or that they're about to go into Taiwan? Who knows? But China is definitely preparing for such a scenario as that. And of course, this would have major implications for the globe. Even if the United States didn't get involved, if China invaded Taiwan, which would help lead to, greater national unity and a sense of purpose for Chinese citizens, help deflect attention away from this deteriorating economic situation. But if they were to do that, even if the United States didn't get involved, the implications for global financial markets and global supply chains would be immense. It would be highly disruptive. It would be a global event on par with the pandemic shutdowns. And so again, we're hearing of rumors of war. We're seeing these birth pain-like events, these global events that just seem to be coming one after another, whether it's global pandemic, global bouts with inflation, these rumors of World War III. Guys, what does all of this mean? Well, Jesus tells us right here. I want to turn back to Matthew 24, verses 32 through 35, where Jesus says this. He says, "Now learn a lesson from the fig tree. When its branches bud and its leaves begin to sprout, you know that summer is near. In the same way, when you see all these things," and by all these things, I believe he's pointing to not just what he talks about in Matthew 24 and Mark 13 and Luke 21, but also, again, what the Old Testament prophets spoke about, what the New Testament prophets spoke about in regard to the times in which we live and the times of the tribulation and the time of Jacob's trouble, that coming 7-year tribulation period. But he says, in the same way, when you see all these things, you can know his return is very near, right at the door. I tell you the truth, this generation will not pass from the scene until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will disappear, but my words will never disappear. So what is Jesus saying? Well, Jesus is saying that when you witness all of these things begin to take place, the events that he's talking about, when you see these birth pains, the generation witnessing those birth pains will not pass away until he returns. Guys, Jesus is coming. So in the midst of all this bad news that we hear about, again, rumors of war, rumors of possible famine, where there's more talk of India further banning exports of rice. Again, if war breaks out in any of these hot spots that we've talked about in the past, the implications for the global supply chain would be immense. We would see food prices, energy prices skyrocket. And so we see these birth pains taking place, but Jesus said, when you see these things, know that I'm very near, right at the door. This generation will not pass until he comes back. So guys, our hope should be in Jesus. We can look forward to that. We can eagerly await his return. In spite of all this bad news and the things that may happen, some of these things we may have to experience. I do not believe we will go through the tribulation period. I believe the rapture will take place before the tribulation. But that doesn't mean that bad things can't happen. Certainly bad things have happened from Adam and Eve to the present day, and they will continue to happen up until the rapture of the church and up until the second coming of Jesus Christ at the end of the tribulation. But guys, our hope should be in Jesus Christ, and you should take hope and take heart in the fact that, guys, he is coming back whenever that may be. He's coming back, and he has already won the victory. Guys, so let me know what you think. What birth pains do you see that are going on? What makes you think? Maybe you think I'm way off. Maybe you think, oh, we're not in that time Jesus spoke about. We're not close to this. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. All comments are welcome here. But in the meantime, make sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe buttons. Guys, I can't emphasize that enough. When you do that, when you hit those buttons, it helps spread this video and videos like this to more and more people, and they can hear about the love and hope we have in Jesus Christ. So, guys, God willing, I will see you again on Friday. So until then, take care. Bye. If you want to learn more about the end times and Bible prophecy, make sure to sign up for my free monthly newsletter and get your copy of my free ebook, 7 Signs of the End Times. Just follow the link in the description to get your free book. Also, make sure to check out all of my books. Just look up Britt on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Apple iBooks, Google Books, Kobo, or anywhere books are sold. Thanks for watching today, and until next time, keep your eyes fixed on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith.